Okay, so here's something wild. By 2030, data centers alone could consume as much electricity as the entire country of India does today. That's where we're headed, and it's just one piece of the energy puzzle we're unpacking today.
That's a staggering comparison. It really puts into perspective how much AI and digital infrastructure are reshaping energy demand. Where do we even begin with all of this?
Let's start with the IEA's 2026 reports. They're showing that electricity demand is growing faster than both GDP and total energy demand. From 2026 to 2030, global power use is expected to grow 3.6% annually, adding about 1,100 terawatt hours each year. That's a huge leap. New York, Boston, New Orleans, Houston would all be underwater if ocean levels grew 3.6%. So that percentage makes a major difference when you think on a global scale.
And most of that growth, nearly 80%, is coming from emerging and developing economies, right? But what's surprising is that advanced economies are also back in growth mode. After years of stagnation, things like data centers, EVs, and heat pumps are driving demand again.
Exactly. It's like this perfect storm of new technologies and shifting priorities. But here's the kicker. Energy security has become the top driver of innovation. The IEA found that 80% of experts now rank it in their top 3 concerns, even above affordability and emissions.
That's such a shift. And yet, public energy R&D funding actually dropped by 2% in 2025, down to $55 billion. Energy tech venture capital is shrinking too, with investors pivoting toward AI. It feels like the funding isn't keeping pace with the complexity of the system.
Right? And that's where AI comes back into the picture. Data centers and AI are becoming massive drivers of electricity demand. By 2026, global data center electricity use is projected to rise 17% and then another 14% annually through 2030. By the end of the decade, we're talking about over 2,200 terawatt hours, equivalent to India's current electricity consumption.
That's mind-blowing. And S&P Global's Energy Horizons report highlights how grid constraints are already forcing companies to adopt stopgap measures like on-site fuel cells or behind-the-meter generation while they wait for grid upgrades. It's a patchwork solution, but it shows how strained the system is.
It really does. And the IEA backs this up with data showing that more than 2,500 gigawatts of projects, renewables, storage, and large loads are stuck in grid connection queues globally. To keep up, annual grid investment needs to jump from $400 billion to $600 billion by 2030.
That's an impressive gap. And it's not just about building more, it's about building smarter. The IEA's Electricity 2026 report emphasizes the role of storage in providing grid flexibility. In 2025, the U.S. installed over 57 gigawatt hours of new battery storage, a 30% year-on-year increase and more than 4 times the volume from 2022.
And it's not slowing down. By 2026, U.S. installations are projected to hit 70 gigawatt hours, with cumulative capacity surpassing 600 gigawatt hours by 2030. The BCSE Factbook confirms this trend, noting that storage is now a central component of new generation capacity. It's no longer optional.
But even with all this progress, the grid remains the bottleneck. The BCSE Factbook reports that U.S. grid investment hit a record $115 billion in 2025, but it's still not enough. Technologies like dynamic line ratings and advanced power flow control could unlock up to 1,600 gigawatts of capacity from projects stuck in queues.
And yet, the technology for resilient, flexible grids already exists. The IEA's innovation report points out that the real barriers are regulatory disincentives and outdated cost recovery models. It's frustrating because the solutions are there. They're just not being implemented fast enough.
That's such a common theme. But let's shift gears and talk about emerging markets. IRENA's Innovation Landscape for Sustainable Development report offers a broader perspective. It maps out 40 key innovations needed to integrate high shares of renewables, especially in emerging markets.
What I love about IRENA's approach is that it's not about finding a single silver bullet. Instead, it's about systemic combinations of AI-enabled tools, smarter grid planning, off-grid solutions, and inclusive financial models. These are the kinds of innovations that deliver resilience and affordability.
And yet, despite record global transition investment, emerging markets outside China still attract only a small share of clean energy capital. There's so much untapped potential, but it requires innovation in business models and risk-sharing instruments, not just hardware.
That's a critical point. IRENA's toolkit approach, focusing on grid modernization, decentralized solutions, and energy access models, really aligns with what these markets need. It's about leapfrogging traditional systems and building something more resilient.
Speaking of resilience, let's touch on nuclear and fusion. The IEA notes that nuclear generation hit a record high in 2025, with steady growth projected through 2030. China alone is expected to account for about 40% of the global increase in nuclear output.
And fusion, while still experimental, is making significant strides. Since 2020, fusion startups have raised about $10 billion, which is over 5% of all energy VC funding. It's a long-term bet, but it could pay off massively if sustained, cooperative funding continues.
The IEA is clear that gigawatt-scale fusion is still a ways off. The real question is whether to frame it as a geopolitical race or focus on international collaboration to share the costs of first-of-a-kind plants. For now, nuclear is re-emerging as a strategic, low-carbon resource for AI-era grids.
And on the demand side, the BCSE Factbook provides a reality check. U.S. consumer spending on energy fell to about 3.66% of personal expenditures in 2025, with the electricity accounting for less than 1.5%. So far, the energy transition hasn't triggered a systemic affordability crisis.
But it's a delicate balance. Non-energy components of bills, like network charges, taxes, and levies, are taking a larger share. If these aren't designed carefully, they could slow down electrification and undermine the transition.
So, bringing it all together, the central question for 2026 isn't whether we can deploy renewables, storage, and digital infrastructure fast enough in isolation. It's whether we can align innovation systems, grids, pricing, and geopolitics to support an AI-heavy electrified economy.
Exactly. Grids and flexibility are the binding constraints, not generation technology. Data centers and AI are the ultimate stress test for national power systems. And emerging markets have a unique opportunity to leapfrog traditional models with the right combination of tools and policies.
It's an exciting and challenging time. The pieces are all there. Now it's about putting them together in a way that's sustainable, equitable, and forward-thinking.
Well said. Here's to hoping the next few years bring the kind of collaboration and innovation we need to make it all work.
Absolutely. Let's keep watching this space. It's only going to get more interesting from here.